He's like a butterfly flapping his wings deep down into the forest, man. It's gonna cause a tree fall like 5,000 miles away, man. There ain't nobody seeing nobody. Man, see, like, you don't even know, man. It's like you're born into this world, man. And you got like the dust and wind, man. Or like the dang old candle, man. It don't matter, man. It's all the time.
So, Lee, is we getting World War III?
I certainly hope so, man.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, my feelings on this have really been compromised. Not by my own principles, not by my own body of work, but mainly by the fact that everyone on any side of this issue has become so irritating that I just simply do not want to discuss it at all.
Yeah.
It's like obviously you have the big fans of the war who, almost immediately after basically being given their version of Christmas. I don't know what that holiday is in that religion, but you got him, right? You got Khomeini. And then 4 hours later, they're like, now what we really need to do is get Turkey. You're like, all right, guys, come on, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
Come on. The chutzpah, if you will. But also, every one of these sort of quote unquote kind of based, anti-Zionists is just immediately reverting to the most kind of cartoonish, anti-colonial, anti-Western stuff. You're like, is it possible for both of you to lose? Because really, I guess the side I'm pulling for now.
Yeah, it's been an unfortunate, series of events on the timeline. And while I do agree, for instance, I would have much rather glassed Turkey long before Iran, just as retribution for them flooding the U.S. firearms market with really bad shotguns.
Look, we can't glass Turkey too soon because I haven't actually figured out if my Turkish MP5 works yet. And I'd at least like to get through one RMA cycle before that entire country is reduced to ashes.
Yeah, fair enough. That's yeah. Yeah.
Also, that's a special level of cope where you're not even arguing that you won't have to. You're just hoping to get the gun fixed.
Yeah, you just
before.
Right, exactly. Yeah. You need to send it back for finishing and the corrections, and then maybe it'll run.
Yeah, I feel like this is it's a much more honest version of politics, which is just setting aside any pretense at principles really whatsoever, taking everything back to how does this affect me, and really, I consider myself now heavily vested in the future of the Turkish government, because of a singular consumer purchase.
Yeah, Jay Burden, Turkey's #1 guy.
One of my favorite things to do with really any foreign people at all is to learn just enough about their nation to make sweeping and offensive generalized statements with little to no backing. So hanging out with a bunch of guys, right, from various Balkans countries, I can be honestly still don't understand. I'm with one of my buddies who's like his family's been here forever. His farm is deeded by the king, right? Like the most American person on the planet. And he doesn't know these guys. So he's like, hey, just like be cool. Don't say anything weird. I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll introduce you to everyone. I walk in, I'm like, hey, yeah, this is my buddy. He's an arch Albanian nationalist. And then just leave the room. Just throw him into, yeah, exactly. Do I know which one of them hate Albanians? No. Are any of them Albanian? Quite possibly. But I do know, I've used social media to know that someone will get mad about that. And that's funny.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. No, I don't know, man. The the timeline, the trouble with a lot of this is the timeline was on a pretty rapid decline, really ever since the Charlie Kirk shooting. And like all these events, obviously, the Charlie Kirk shooting, the war in Iran. I mean, these things, the nature of these things is unpleasant and unfortunate. So I'm speaking as it relates specifically to my unregretted user seconds on the X application. It's the quality of things has really been going downhill as people become further and further detached from reality. And when you're talking about like a war, it's particularly difficult for people because you of course have a high degree of uncertainty. Like things are unfolding very quickly. Many things are clandestine in nature, and the information that is made public, always has an angle to it. Like nothing coming out of any non-US based accounts has any. There's just no reason to believe any of it, and there's only a little bit of reason to believe the stuff that comes out of American based accounts. And so, people just get out over their skis and they start, you get a fair mix of like, oh, well, there's no way this could go wrong. It's just going to be no big deal. It is what it is. Like, it's going to be awesome. And then, there's people like, oh, it's all over. Like, it's just, this is the end. This is it. The midterms are over. The MAGA is over. The country is over. All that kind of thing. And it's very frustrating to just consume while scrolling because so little of it is actually based in any type of discernment. And I know there's I'm not exactly one to talk because most of my stuff is just inflammatory shit posting. But it's kind of that's kind of the mode of the Twitter account. I'm not pretending to be like an OSINT account or something like that. And so it is annoying watching people who are generally posting better takes or otherwise intelligent just absolutely coming unglued one way or another over things that are by definition unfolding in real time and very open-ended and uncertain.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to give the Iranians credit because for seemingly no reason. Like, I haven't quite figured out the strategic desire here, but they have done something that I have long wanted to do, which is to send highly explosive ordnance into Dubai. Much like the Iranian regime, I don't have a great reason either, but it just sort of offends me as a city. Yeah. So, if we're assigning, who's your team in this, obviously, like, okay, yeah, my government's involved, so that's something. There are people like me who've been forced into this, so that's one part of it. But also, I mean, if I had explosive drones, what would I be doing with them? So I have to admit at least that kind of bias going into it.
Well, yeah, and it's every time I stop to get a Monster or a protein bar or something, the counter at every gas station in the fucking country has a little section of fake, like, Dubai chocolate, which I don't, euphemism aside, I don't really know what that means. Like, I see the wrapper and it's like, it looks like this is a small chocolate bar with like some green shit on the inside of it. And I don't like it at all. It's new. I don't like new things, especially when they come from places like Dubai, and it makes my already bad gas station experience even worse. And so if they have to eat a couple strays, they got to charge that one to the game.
Well, in addition, because actually, now you bring that up in complete agreement, I'm confused by the presence of this Dubai chocolate because I don't know if I've ever seen anyone buy it. It just seems to stay there forever. I think it's the result of some sort of like TikTok trend of yestermonth or something like that. But for some reason, every 7-Eleven in America has just decided to take up
Yeah.
like 50% of their counter space with this one product.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has the same like spiritual vibe as you know how a fair portion of like the African American community seems to really enjoy having food brought to them that is just extremely elaborate for no reason. Like they'll go out to a steakhouse and pay like $500 to have a shitty steak brought to them because it's in like golden tinfoil or something. It feels to me like that's the same consumer experience where it's like, I don't think like what was wrong with just a regular Hershey's bar or something. Like I think the chocolate bar was fine. And now, it's on the counter next to like CBD gummies and, you know, it's got a vegetable inside of it for some reason or whatever that is. And, I don't like it. I could do without it. And so if Dubai, you know, goes down, you know, a fiery storm of fucking swarming death drones, yeah, it's fair enough. Fair enough that, you know, these things, everything has a price.
Well, look, Lee, you're a gym goer, a fitness man. So maybe you can explain this to me. When and why did every kind of low rent fitness influencer decide to move to Dubai all at once? Because I don't pretend to really pay attention to that world. I find it sort of bizarre. It seems to me to be kind of solved science, and yet we are still creating new jacked guys and giving them millions of dollars for being jacked guys, and then selling supplements or whatever. But in my very brief research, it did seem to be like that Dubai was the kind of mecca, ironically enough, for that. That's where you went, sort of like Miami is for like really irritating streamers or
Yeah, sure, yeah.
looks maxers. I don't know what we're calling them now. People who get frame mugged and cortisol spike. Do you have any insights to offer there, Lee?
No, I mean, I presume it's money. There's been some type of, renewed or budding interest in like,
or maybe it's the same thing as the the Instagram models getting the Dubai chocolate, if you will.
Yeah, I think there's some. Yeah, it's like a mix. There's some organic interest from the like wealthy faction of the Arab world to get into like Western style athletics, like golf or combat sports. Instagram fitness influencing, that kind of thing. And then of course there's the more base Arabian desire to defecate on Caucasian females in exchange for what to them is tremendous amounts of money, and what to the Arab guy is a tiny pittance. So I think that's basically it. Which,
I mean, you came up through the libertarian space, or at least you did for the purposes of this next joke. So, I mean, really, it's just an efficient market, right? We have very wealthy men just looking for a solution, and who are we to in any way object to that?
Yeah. I mean, everyone needs a place to shit, and the Anglo uses the toilet, the Indian uses the street, and wealthy Arabs use girls on Instagram. And so, it just kind of is what it is. But it just makes it tough to cry over a couple drones that go off course.
Well, and to your point about the whole kind of weird decadence of the chocolate thing, it's one of these things that I feel like if you're on social media you've seen, which is just the kind of like bizarre excessive displays of wealth from the kind of emirate states. like you always see this of like, oh, all the police cars in Dubai are just, Bugattis and Porsches. And you're like, well, I mean, that's neat, I guess. Like, that's kind of cool. And then you dig into all of these kind of like, incredibly, over the top building projects, which seem to be just sort of some elaborate kind of money laundering scheme. And then you realize like, oh wait, like 80% of the population just lives on welfare. It's like, this is a very bizarre society.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have the kind of like obligatory, like, oh, this, late stage capitalism type of analysis on it.
Yeah.
But I just do not understand it fundamentally.
I think it's funny. It's like, I enjoy it because, unlike, and maybe this is, like a shitty thing to say, but I feel like from like very wealthy people in America, like I look at people who, are just orders of magnitude better off financially than I am. And I think to myself, like, well, what do they do? Like, what can I learn from their, their habits or their pattern of behavior, the way that they solve problems or consider things or that type of deal. But when I see like, some guy with like a fucking leopard in a Ferrari, I'm just like, I feel the same way about that guy as I do about seeing George Floyd driving around in a Nissan Sentra. And I feel like that's why they do it over there, because they think that it is like viewed with respect or admiration. And at least for me, it's not, it's just like, well, this is fucking retarded to have a Ferrari police car. Like this is like the most hood rich, like thing that you could ever dream up. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. That's a good way to describe it. It's sort of like you basically took an entire country and just let them win the lottery.
Yeah.
And yet somehow it's still going on.
Right. Like in a
so, like,
sense.
There's some like, yeah, the nation state version of winning the lottery.
Well, that's why they call it black gold, is because if you have a bunch of it, you just act like a black guy who won a bunch of scratch off tickets.
And the worst part is, at least allegedly, right, is that, the Arabs can't drink and can't smoke. So it's like all that wealth with no Henny and Swishers, right? It's like, right. What's the brother to do?
Yeah, it's just play pimping. That's, and it's a weird thing, and viewed through that lens, I think it's obvious that Iran was the wrong target. Like it would have been way funnier if we had just randomly just really fucking hit Dubai just for like no real reason at all, other than just their like extreme opulence. Like if we just did it to just like knock them down a peg, like it would be really funny to watch A-10s doing gun runs on like rows of police Ferraris. That would have been much better. I mean, and they, as far as I know, they have no real way of fighting that off. Like at least as poorly as it is performed, at least Iran had the common sense to have some type of military posture. I don't even know that Dubai has anything like that.
Yeah, well, I think that this is, because there's a lot of conversations going around like, oh, why did this happen? I said, we know why, really kind of, gazing into the crystal ball. And I think that, as our new strategic footing needs to just be to really kind of bamboozle everyone by just doing things because they're funny. So,
yeah,
we have a strong precedent with the Maduro raid, hitting him with the Goy beam, just reducing like 40 Cuban guys to like a bowl full of spaghetti.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But Lee, who else is on your doesn't make sense, but it would be funny list? I'm going to go out on a limb and say Cherokee.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's some unfinished business there, but they've been complaining a lot, or maybe, I don't know. Let's say that they have, just put up another easy win on the board.
Well, it would be funny if they did. Who's the Twitter guy? Lakota man, the guy who pretends to be Indy. That would be a good one for the FBI to
just like, him in person,
just disappear. Yeah, I mean, as far as nation state actors, I don't know.
To be sporting though, we got to send a Delta Force or SEAL Team 6 in, but with sharps, carbines, and swords, just to for old time's sake, I guess.
Yeah, it would be funny to hit France and capture Emmanuel Macron and just give him an atomic wedgie, and just live stream it and then just leave. You don't kill him or anything like that. You just really humiliate
forcibly give him sex reassignment surgery just to make Candace Owens right.
Yeah, dead. Right. That would be funny. I do think Turkey would make sense to attack just by merit of being Turkish. Think of it this way. If we had handled the Turkey problem 50 years ago, the Young Turks never would have streamed. That show would not have happened.
So yeah, and we could get all the millennial types on it, or on side, just by using the justification of Hassan Piker, sending his dog to conversion therapy. Be like, oh, it's for the dogs.
Yeah,
it's just really no, but we need a reason.
Yeah, it would be funny to strap Hassan Piker to a missile. Can you say? I don't know if he's. I don't know if
that's I think what you're. So I don't know if this is true. I'm not editing it out anyway. I think that you're safe with cartoonish, Wile E. Coyote-esque threats.
Yeah.
So if you're I want to drop an Acme, anvil on his head, or paint a vista onto a cliff face outside his house and have him run into it, or pull out a bridge underneath him and fall until he looks down.
And that would, stuff like that would make, think about how much more popular Mossad would be if instead of doing shit like blowing up people's pagers or, all the other stuff, if they just did funny pranks, what if it's just Jim from The Office style pranks, Israel stock would go way up, especially with young people. If Mossad agents went into Iran or whatever and just strategically placed a rake outside of Khomeini's front door so that he stepped on it and it just smacked him in the face, and then every time a bodyguard ran out to save him, there was another rake smacking, and it just kept happening, just like a cartoon. That would be much better for Mossad. The whole conflict would be over. Everyone would get along. They'd all be friends.
Well, I mean, maybe that's why they the footage of Epstein in his cell is gone missing. is because he did a Jim Halpert stare at the camera, and DOJ is like, guys, he's just too charismatic. We couldn't let this get out.
Yeah, Mossad comes in, they sneak into the prison, they slide him his food, and it's just a noose that's fully encased in Jell-O.
It cuts back to Jeffrey Epstein talking to the camera.
Yeah, he just looks up at the prison camera with the Jim Halpert look. He's like, "What is this fucking noose doing with this giant thing of Jell-O?"
Ghislaine Maxwell walks in with an entire pot or slow cooker full of chili, just drops it on the ground. I mean, who knows? Maybe that's how the Koi beam actually works, right?
Yeah,
the Delta Force just walked in with the thing full of chili, and then they had to put in the little urns afterwards.
Yeah, they say you're either coming with us or we're going to publish the video of you falling into this giant puddle of chili, struggling to get out of it.
Maduro's like, I had no choice. Now I'm getting paraded through New York like it's a Roman triumph.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's I don't know. It is kind of an interesting situation I mean, I don't know when you're planning on releasing this. Things could have taken.
Lee, I am planning on releasing this almost immediately.
Okay, yeah,
because I am severely behind on content.
Yeah, if this comes out more than probably 2 hours after we record it, all of this information is going to be like, well expired. But
how awful are we going to feel if like I go to bed, and I set this to come out tomorrow at 8. And at like 7:30, I get on the computer and I see Dubai reduced to ashes, hit by Iranian nuke.
Yeah, right. Like we're here talking about how this whole thing would be better if it was just funny. You schedule it for 8 a.m. and at like 4 a.m. like 7 nukes go off around the country, just like massive dirty bomb attacks.
It's just have horrible radiation poisoning. The last thing I think before I gray out, all my hair falls out is like. Should have hit release just a few minutes early.
Right. It should have been more whimsical. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, if we're speaking about the real consequences of this war or whatever, you've spoken about the very real timeline implications, but I think our leaders really need to be much more considerate of how much of a bummer this could be. For the podcast Americans, which look like I don't know, Donald. I've only got but so much material on this. So if you could wrap it up quickly, I'd really appreciate that.
Yeah. A protracted engagement is of course difficult for content producers. Which is war is hell. That's how it goes.
It's like, oh, boo hoo. My legs got blown off. I'll never walk again. Yeah, well, I had to think of what to say for several weeks on end. So
right.
Let's keep your problems in perspective.
Well, I do think I don't know. I mean, in terms of like actual stuff, I think it's kind of interesting that Marco Rubio came out a few hours ago and basically said, "Yeah, we had to do this because of Israel." Like that.
That's pretty anti-Semitic of him to say.
Well, it's kind of intriguing in a way because it's like, on one hand, a lot of people like going into it, it's just like, it's kind of like, I don't know, kind of an unspoken, or at least something that only gets discussed in like a roundabout manner. So it is interesting for someone to just come out and be like, yeah, we did this because Israel, like they were going to do it. Because I mean, he basically made comments to the effect that Israel was going to attack Iran regardless, and if they carry that out, well, we were not in the current posture that we're in. Our casualties would have been significant. Our ability to defend would have been less than what it is. I don't know. I don't really know why. I guess like that just seems like one of those comments that maybe you save for like a hot mic moment or something. Like not like that's an interesting public comment to make, I guess, because it's obviously going to be extremely unpopular and for good reason. But it's kind of like, well, this is. I guess it's the first very clear rift too in like messaging, because the messaging on this has been pretty tight, where it's just like, okay, we're doing a limited engagement, whatever, regime change war, because this is like an imminent threat to the United States. And then like 2 or 3 days later, the Secretary of State's like, oh, Israel, like, duh. And I don't know, that's an interesting shift. On one hand, it's like, I don't think we're used to that level of just candor about the nature of our relationship in the Middle East with Israel. People, of course, it's not like an unpopular topic in our circles on Twitter, but I don't know. I mean, can you think of a time where like an actual, cabinet level official was just like, yeah, Israel's going to do this either way. So we kind of had to. I mean, I think,
Well, I
not
mean,
off the top of my head, at
especially
least.
from Marco Rubio, right? Who's not exactly an outsider, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. So, that's interesting. At least that definitely changes because, there's like, there's a lot of complexity, to the situation. Like, it is true. Like, you could make, at least I think, you could make a pretty reasonable case that it is in the U.S. interests to change the regime in Iran. Like, I think, given their history in the Middle East post-revolution, like they have consistently been hostile to America. They have had several notable incidents where they've killed American service members, disrupted the entire region, supplied people who have tried to kill and succeeded at killing American service members. Their basic premise of like, statehood is death to America. So from a purely like empire standpoint, like if this were something that you read about, from like Imperial Rome or something, like if you crack a history book and it's like, yeah, well, the Gauls' position was death to Rome, and they had been launching a number of attacks, and so Rome finally went in and like said, fuck it, we ball. From that standpoint, it's reasonable. I don't know that there's a case to be made for this being urgent. Like I think like I said, you could make the case that like, yeah, these guys are just open enemies of the United States. They're openly hostile, and so there's just objectively, like if your fucking next door neighbor's stated goal is I'm gonna fucking kill you the next time I see you, you would have to be concerned about that. And so if you have a country who is overtly hostile, you have to be concerned with that as well. But I don't know that there was any real urgency to merit this type of build-up and then response. I caveat that with, of course, I don't have access to the same information that Donald Trump does. So who knows? Maybe there's an off chance that there was actually some type of imminent threat. It seems more likely that the imminent threat was Iran's inevitable retaliatory response after an Israeli strike. So that, again, from like a realistic standpoint, you do have to account for that. Like if you know that you're going to have U.S. personnel in harm's way, and you're in charge of the military, like you do have to choose a course of action on that. You cannot ignore that. And so you do have to do something. Now, whether that something is like, a large buildup followed by, massive air campaigns or that kind of thing, time will tell whether that bears out as being like a wise thing. But it is interesting and a little, I don't know, almost risky for Rubio to come out and just blatantly just say like, yeah, this was some of the circumstances involving this, is that we kind of got roped into this because a regional partner that we have like security agreements with was going to do this unilaterally, and that was going to put us at risk, and so we had to basically absorb that risk by overwhelming force to mitigate the risk that posed. Because then you obviously run into the question of like, well, is the U.S. military's activity, or why would that be downstream of consequences that Israel imposes rather than self-determined by us? that's like no shit. That's the obvious problem. And so I don't see the upshot to Rubio just coming right out and saying that, basically, because that's obviously going to be very unpopular, and he could have just as easily, kept up the facade of just like, oh, well, we had information there was going to be an attack or something to maintain some degree of like deniability there.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that I'm thinking about a lot with this is that compared to the kind of general electorate, you and I are in a pretty ferociously anti-war and anti-Israel bubble. And look, those positions are more mainstream than they have historically been. And just because they are minority opinions doesn't mean they're wrong. Far from it. But one of the things that I think about a lot is that for a lot of kind of normal people, this stuff is not as big of an issue in and of itself as it is to us. And so you saw this with the Operation Midnight Hammer, that a bunch of people were saying like, oh, this will be the thing that splits MAGA. This will be the thing that, sinks the Trump administration. That didn't happen. It still may happen in the future. But I think one of the important things to look at with this is that, oftentimes something that is, neutral to slightly unpopular can become a big problem due to opportunity cost, right? This is what you chose to do instead of X, Y, or Z.
Right.
And, really the narrative of, in my mind, the last year to year and a half, really, kind of after the point at which Doge, with Elon left and Doge kind of petered out, is the hey, look, nothing's happening. And, and you can look into this, Mark Mitchell Rasmussen's done a great deal of, reporting on this, is that there's, growing dissatisfaction with, any number of issues, whether it's, affordability, the judiciary, the fact that the SAVE or the Save America Act, whatever they're calling it now, is kind of, been stuck, is basically this feeling of hey guys, one, it is kind of weird, as you've said, that Rubio is yeah, this wasn't really our call. We were kind of forced into this because of, another group. But also it's wait a minute. Okay. So the thing you can get done is this, right? What about all the stuff for us? And, like I said, I'm not a huge electoral politics guy, but I think that sentiment is growing. You see it in the, the data. And this is something that came up, before the attacks kicked off, with the, Huckabee's appearance on Tucker, where he, asked him a very simple question. Was look, do we live in a democracy? Huckabee's yeah, of course we do. It's all right, well, I mean, 80% of people oppose, strikes on Iran. And, the response is sort of this disingenuous, oh, well, we can't let, polls make policy. It's yeah, okay, sure, guys, but seemingly this is the one issue for which there is the political will to get something done. And I'm not entirely sure how you get out of that narrative when everything on the domestic front seems to be just gummed up forever.
Yeah, and it's complicated by the fact that you see this commentary about, oh, well, we better get the SAVE Act out of this. And while I think that the SAVE Act should pass, I think that the voting system in the United States is, horrible. It's I think it's very obviously compromised, and I think at a minimum, it absolutely makes sense to have in-person voting with proof of citizenship and photo ID. And much of that is provision in the SAVE Act. So I want that to pass. But the problem is if the only way for American politicians to begrudgingly agree to stop letting illegal aliens vote for their own infinite free money is to like do Israel this huge solid of wiping out the regime in Iran. That only exacerbates the situation in my assessment, where it's like, yeah, the only way you can actually even like have a secure voting, like we will trade you this is a quid pro quo, where you're going to have to kill a small but growing number of American service members in order to do Israel like this favor, and in exchange they will let the politicians in the Senate and the House that they have a disproportionate amount of influence over, they will let them actually give you like a crumb of your own national self-interest. Like that is concerning to me, to put it mildly. Like, okay, why can't why can't the American Senate, like we really can't get more than 50% support for just making sure that only Americans vote? Like, this is not controversial at all. To your point, like that's an 80-20 issue. That's more than an 80-20 issue, but not randomly attacking Iran is also very unpopular. So you have two things that have very clear like polling preferences that are contraposed, and it's like, well, the only way you can have a treat is if you undertake this military action. Now, like that to me, like from where I'm sitting as just being a random guy who stays up on politics, that seems to be the case. I'm open to being wrong on that. I don't know that I am. I hope that I am wrong. I don't want that to be the case. But that does seem to be the case. It's difficult to lay that out, especially because much of the like social media anti-Semitism at this point is just like very cringe, third world, like conspiracy tard, like real low budget, low IQ stuff that is just, it's just not serious. But the situation as it is developing right now, like as what we saw with Marco Rubio's comments earlier today, this does, of course, continue. It doesn't do anything to like, as the kids would say, beat the allegations, I guess. And so, this is what I'm saying. I don't consider it to be a nuanced take. I consider that to be just the flat reality. And I've seen a lot of people trying to, both under and overstate that on the timeline. If it does bear out, if it is true that like this massive engagement, which has cost American lives, was undertaken primarily because Israel was going to do it regardless, and we needed to step in to make sure it was successful, otherwise face graver risk to our own personnel. That would be very bad. And it further raises the question of like, why even fucking bother having like a government? Why bother having a Republican Party? Why bother with any of this stuff? I mean, these are common critiques in our circles. Like, obviously the GOP is, it needs to be defeated. Like, there's no point in having a GOP when stuff like this is what's going to happen. So, if there is, like the other side of the coin on that, of course, is that Israel is like a regional ally. We do have security agreements in place with Israel, and it is possible for Israeli interests and American interests to genuinely overlap. And so, from like a statecraft standpoint, and again, not having access to all of the information that the people who make decisions presumably have access to, Perhaps there is like a non-zero chance that in the long view this serves both of our interests, and so maybe it just makes sense to get it done, even if it's unpopular. And so, God willing, the engagement will be as short as it can be to have any type of meaningful long-term effect on things. But I don't know. It's unclear that that is the case. So it's not that there are situations where American and Israeli interests can never align, and we're just like, I don't know. People say, America is Israel's lapdog and stuff like that. And I understand. I see how people come to that conclusion. I don't know that is like the fully like the best way to characterize the relationship. But there's obviously some undue influence, and Marco Rubio's comments definitely may make that pretty obvious, I guess. So we'll kind of see what goes on from there, because if anything, that will be what kind of causes more of a fracture on the right, just coming right out in plain English and saying that. And I don't know if there's any calculation behind his choice in doing that too. Rubio is not like a careless speaker. He's not a flippant guy. And so part of me wonders if he's saying that specifically for a reason with other goals in mind. I don't know.
Well, honestly, like I think one of the irritating things about this is that it is sort of completely and totally opaque. I mean, not really, right? Not to people like us, but if there was just the like, all right, guys, look, this is how it works. You have to do something for us to get what you want. It's like, okay, well, it's not a great situation. You like to live in a country where the purpose of your military and your elected government was to actually do things for you. But at least then it'd be like, all right, like, okay, how many Yemeni children do I have to kill personally before you guys let me, I don't know, import a Toyota Hilux or something like that? And I'm not saying I'd do it, but it would put things into perspective, right? You could sort of form some sort of economy around this. What kind of gifts are worth a certain amount, because you hear the allegation of shill thrown around, and there's something to that, but there's almost something more galling about the fact that like a lot of these guys seem to just be doing it for free, just for love of the game.
Sure, yeah.
And if you're going to be in a what some shall we say critics would call some kind of like occupied government, if you will, guys, like it just pull the Jim Carrey masks off already and just be honest about it. It'd at least make a little more sense, because the kind of current situation is just turning everyone insane.
Yeah, and
I get it, right? Like I've read the Epstein files. I've come to the conclusion that effectively everything is just the work of the lizard people, the Rothschilds, I don't know, whoever else you want. It's like I get it, but at the same time, I'd appreciate a little bit of honesty, I guess.
Yeah, and the other concern, I guess, like there's a lot of retards who you hear the criticism of like third worldism and stuff like that come up, and sometimes it's very valid. I think it's very annoying to go on the timeline and see like a first generation Blaxican teenager saying that like I don't know, like you're a goy slave or something like that because I don't know, you ate like a hamburger or something, like there is that like in the longer term we're gonna have to figure something out here with this, where it's like, let's kind of I don't know, get a little bit serious here, and not fully go off the deep end into being like fully detached from reality, because that's the difficult thing, it seems like, for a lot of much of like the internet space. And our part of the internet has, I think the best thinkers. I certainly don't count myself in there. I'm stupid, but they're like the people in our sphere that are have influence usually have things to say that are at least thoughtful. So I'm not really trying to throw shade, as at anyone in particular. I'm more talking about like, the TikTok slop that you see on the timeline. Like there is a whole world of like elder millennials. There are women with purple hair who are making videos about, Jim Carrey is a shapeshifter, and Israel controls the flat Earth, and Donald Trump has this, is barbecuing babies and stuff like that, where there are a lot of people who are just kind of checked out, where it's just like, well, I don't know, I'm just not really going to engage with reality anymore. I'm just going to engage with whatever produces clicks and attention and things like that. And so that's a weird thing to exist. Like, that's a weird social layer to exist in a war, because if you think about this particular conflict thus far in a historical context, so we're recording this on a Monday evening, and this started Friday morning. Is that right? So something like that. So we're like 4 days into it, basically. And in those 4 days, according to like what the publicly available information is at the time of this recording, the leader of Iran has been killed. Most of the Iranian military leadership has been killed. Khomeini's successor was killed. The previous president was killed. I think his successor's successor was killed. Their military has engaged now, I guess, in what has been coined the Mosaic defense, which is where they're just letting mid-level commanders just kind of choose their own adventure as far as what they're going to do. So there is no central command structure guiding the Iranian military that is known publicly right now. The Iranian Navy, at least as far as what was present in the Straits of Hormuz, has been destroyed. So that's 11 surface ships that have been sunk. A very large portion of their ability to wage war has been effectively neutralized. This is very one-sided right now. And as the United States, like, time is our enemy in conflict, right? Like, that is the relationship that we have with success, is that the longer it takes, the less successful it will be. So time is obviously our enemy, but 4 days into it, this war is pretty unpopular because of this social layer of social media, much of which is operated by people who are stupid and who are not engaging with reality whatsoever, but do have the ability to shape social consensus and political outcomes at the ballot box. So, obviously, like, you are not a democracy enjoyer. Neither am I. I think this is just showing that, there are some serious flaws with this system. However, by all historical accounts, this is an overwhelming tactical military victory. Like, there's no question of who is winning this engagement right now. The U.S. military at this time, there are 6 known American personnel killed in action, and 3 F-15s that were shot down over Kuwait, where the crew survived. So we've lost, 3, big ticket items as far as hardware, and 6 personnel, which is a tragedy. But by the cold metric of just tactical success, like, Iran is on the very, very, very shit end of this stick. And at any other time in history, like, this probably would have been a winning thing to do. Like, if you take it back 2,000 years, if the king was like, oh yeah, we waged a war, we knocked all their shit out in 4 days, we lost 6 guys, we're coming home, that would have been very popular domestically, in like Roman society or Spartan society or something like that. But in 2026, it's very, not popular. Not only that, but people who are otherwise intelligent are actively panicking about how it's all over. Where it's there are people who are like, oh, this is the end. And I love these accounts where there's people who are just like, oh, that's it for America. The meme posts about fill up your tanks, like it's the end of America. The dollar it's going to collapse tomorrow, and no one's going to be able to get fuel, and there's going to be massive civil unrest, and that's the end of the administration. And none of that, is happening right now. Like, that's not even close to happening. Like, and you see this kind of stuff, and it's like, dude, there are some real problems, it seems like, in the fundamental incentives that precipitated this military action. However, we don't source, like much of our fucking oil from the hostile Iranian regime. I don't, like, this is not a realistic assessment of what's going to happen. Further, Iran poses no existential threat to the United States at all. They don't have an expeditionary military. They have no ability to project force on our country. Like, they cannot do anything. Like, this is, a country that's largely walled in by God to stop them from fucking spreading. So, it's like, there are some very valid criticism of this, but there's no reason to be like shitting your pants, pissing your pants, crying about how it's all over, because there's no indication of this. Like that at least not as of this time. This would really be the part that schedule podcast release button could fuck up. But there's really not all that much that could happen in terms of like direct military outcomes. Now, we've been very lucky so far. Like there's not been an element of like quagmire at this time. Knock on wood. Anything can happen. What's going on is a very complex operation involving several countries over hostile skies. Like, it is entirely possible that some shit really goes off the rails, and I hope that doesn't happen, because I want my country to win. That's the other thing that not everyone seems to be able to mentally handle, is that it's like, yeah, man, you can disagree with this going on and like still want it to work out. There's a term for that. It's called loyalty. Like that's what that means. Like, you should be rooting for your own side. It's like, if you, like, if your wife is going to do something fucking dumb and you're like, hey, look, I don't think you should do that. I think it's a bad idea. And she's like, well, look, it's really important to me. Just, let me ride this out. Well, sometimes you got to back that up. And, being loyal to something, it can only apply under duress and when you're not entirely comfortable with the situation. You know what I mean? Like, it's not possible to show loyalty under convenient circumstances. So there's a bunch of fucking retards on Twitter who's like, oh, what you get Jackson Hinkle, who's long live Iran, we support Iran, and there's a bunch of recent immigrants who are just posting nonstop about, well, if we lose, that's fine. We've got it coming. I hope whatever, all these soldiers or whatever retards, and I hope they die. That would be better than fucking doing something to help Israel. Yada yada. There's the whole thing, and that's also indicative of a problem. It's like, yeah, man, it's like, that is also a perspective that is divorced from reality. Like, you should not want your country to fail, like, just point blank. Like, that's fucking stupid. Like, you shouldn't want people from your country to die. Like, why do you think that would be good? You know what I mean? Like, so what you're telling me is that it would be bad and good simultaneously to die for Israel. Like, what? It's not a coherent position that a lot of these accounts have managed to, like, convince themselves to adopt, and that's an annoying aspect of this as well.
No, certainly, and it's one of those things as well where, and this is sort of the danger of anything as it becomes popular, right? Is you're sort of become, you're always at the mercy of that bottom quintile. And when we talk about, an awareness of what Mearsheimer would have called like the Israel lobby or anything, when that was a minority position, it was easier to have an intelligent conversation. But as, due to, as it has become more and more plain, it has become more and more a part of, everyday conversation on both the left and the right. It is sort of become a stupider conversation. And there's no way around that, right? There's no way around, that kind of negative side of, popularization. But it still is incredibly irritating because, to your point, the idea that you should, root against your own nation or, hope for people like you to die because you disagree with executive policy. It's like, well, okay, no, like, I don't agree with that. And does that mean that I, like our government's allegiances? Far from it. But at a certain point, it seems as if many people are allowing themselves to be driven crazy by this. And I understand it. Like, it's crazy making. But I don't know. I think that's a step too far. But Lee, it's getting late, man. This has been honestly a much more educational conversation than I think I was expecting. But dude, where can people find you?
Mostly on Twitter right now, just at shortmagsmle. Yeah, that's basically it for now. I haven't landed on a name for a Substack. I'm still trying to figure something out. But you just follow me on Twitter.
As far as my stuff, Jay Burden Show, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Throw me a few bucks a month. The episode's early and ad-free. Patreon, Substack, and Gumroad, I think. It's a ton of fun, man. I appreciate it. I'll be in touch, dude.